And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I apologize for running a few minutes late tonight, and I'm also running solo. So if you're watching and you'd like to contribute to the program, this is a good night to do it. I'd prefer a conversation rather than a monologue, and the number, if you'd like to contribute, is 860-445-7499. And I guess I'll open up with, were you was disappointed with the football game on Sunday, the Super Bowl? As a Patriot fan, I was disappointed in their performance and their lack of adjustments. But kudos to Seattle. They played well and manhandled the Patriot offensive line. They just didn't make proper adjustments to give themselves a chance to be successful, and I'm a bit surprised by that. And also the hubbub over the halftime show, which I did not watch. I did not watch the alternative Kid Rock show either, and I have to admit that I really don't, I'm not that interested in that part of the programming, and haven't watched it for a long time. I can't remember the last time I watched the Super Bowl halftime. So it was not a political statement, it was just an interest statement. And if anybody has anything that they may like to offer or contribute regarding the snub of Bill Belichick to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, or Robert Kraft to own the Patriots, to a degree, I'm disappointed for them and the Patriots, but those are the rules. And if you don't like them, change them. It's kind of like how I feel about the law. You don't like a law, change it. Just don't show disregard for it. It's kind of like what the Democrats like to do. If they don't like a law, they just ignore it. They pick and choose with what they like to support and contribute to and follow. And otherwise, they just do whatever the hell they want. And immigration's probably the biggest example of that, and how they're treating ICE around the country in many of our large urban areas. That's a disgrace what's happening in our urban cities in terms of crime, ICE, immigration. It's just an amazing lack of respect for the rule of law. And can't have my way, and then they go to court. So they'll try to win things through the courts that they can't win legislatively. If they can't win by popular opinion, let's go to court. Now, shifting gears, it's been reported recently that the City of New London, in its infinite wisdom, has got some problems with labor in the new recreation center. They've hired a firm to operate the facility, and one of the city's unions filed a grievance that this firm is taking union jobs. Quite frankly, and it went to the labor board, and the union won. So here's a case of where the city, and the irony of it is that Mayor Passero is a labor attorney representing labor, and he should know better. He should have had this all put to bed well before this facility opened, and now we're going to be looking at tens of thousands of dollars in legal costs. That was, I would call, in this case, an unforced error. This should have been dealt with before we opened the doors, long before. And what are we going to do about it? And what's it going to cost? And I just, or what has it cost, even just having to fight it? It really is just disturbing, the cavalier attitude with the local tax dollars and how it's spent. And I'd also like to see if we can get some sort of a public report of the membership of the new facility. How are we making out in terms of the revenue that we need to at least break even? And I mean, I'm hearing numbers that are quite low, in the neighborhood of 1,000 to 1,100, and it's been reported we're going to need closer to 5,000 for a break-even proposition. So we're a long way away from where we need to be without the taxpayers having to pick up a huge burden. And this is just for operating costs, has nothing to do with the cost of building and maintaining this facility. And we all know in New London the track record we have for not taking care of our capital and our projects and our buildings. And that's why when things break down, it always costs us a fortune, because we're not doing repairs or maintenance, we're doing new stuff. So we start from scratch and do it again at exorbitant cost. And you don't hear about the cost overruns on building this facility either. It's really a shame. There is a need, absolutely. Matter of fact, during one term on council, I was working with Passero, as we were both councilors at the time, regarding the concept of a recreation center. But we weren't looking at anything like this, and we certainly weren't looking at a location like we have, which is buried on Fort Trumbull, and it's not visible and it's not easily accessible. So I'm just wondering who's going to use it and who's paying what. How many people are paying full freight and how many are getting significant discounts? Are our youth being served? And our poorer youth in particular being served? So we don't know, because they're not sharing that type of information with us. And I think that's incumbent upon the mayor and the council to be transparent on what's going on down there. You know, we've spent $40+ million on this place. I've heard as high as $60 million, but I'm not sure we're quite that high yet. But it's really, we ought to know. I know that when this was being proposed, a significant portion of our revenue stream to support this was going to come from out-of-town memberships, and I just don't see where our neighbors are going to come in a philanthropic way and say, you know what, New London needs our help, so let's take out memberships, when in their communities they have rec centers, or their high schools have pools, and their high schools are accessible, and they will not be coming pell-mell into New London. I'll be on Lee Elsie tomorrow morning at 6:30, and we'll be discussing this topic again. And it just, I'd like to get your feedback on what you think. You know, the day paper just recently has had an article asking, what do you think we need to do with downtown? Well, that's a question we could have for a lot of things. What about the rec center itself, brand spanking new? How about the 84-year-old Ocean Beach Park? Actually 74 years old. Ocean Beach Park, built in 1940 after the 38 hurricane. We have a firm that's had contractual obligations to operate the beach for a number of years, Sodexo, and they are not bidding on this. This is now going out to bid, and the parameters seem to be pretty much the same old, and they're going to expect different results. Einstein called this insanity. You know, if you want something different, you've got to do something different. And I don't see, again, the city leaders inquiring of the city, the citizens, the people who live here, what they think. What do they want at Ocean Beach? What do they want downtown? It just seems to be a crapshoot. And frequently, we have out-of-towners who come in and they implement what they think would be the best thing without necessarily even discussing this with the town folk. And I just think this is kind of bad business. We have, we live here, we support our town, we pay taxes, and there should be a much larger effort being made to get the contributions and thoughts from the citizens throughout the city on all these issues, north and south, east and west, and all neighborhoods. And instead of having an elite few making these decisions, although that seems to be the democratic socialist way, is having the elites make the decisions and not the rank and file. So we get what we sow here. And another big issue, and this may be the biggest thing coming down the pike for New London and the region, and that is, it was in the paper that EB is planning on hiring 8,000 new employees next year, on top of the 3,000 that they have been hiring this year and last year. And quite frankly, that's an awful lot of employees, and with the employees will be becoming spouses and children, perhaps even grandparents. And where are they going to live? A lot of folks and a lot of investments being made right now in apartment buildings in New London and beyond. And I am very, very concerned about this because it's the apartment dwellings are something that folks can easily enter, but also easily leave. So if circumstances of the electric boat change and it's downsized, or if employees get better job opportunities, that they will pick up and go. And everything that's going up new has been on the higher end side, at least for our market. And I think that you'll find that folks will come into the area, they may move into these places, but if the rents get to be too stiff, they will move into more affordable housing. And the folks, and you hear a lot of it, you see it online and you see it on the comments, people complaining about high rental costs, and the real estate market just in home ownership is also high. And that's a case of the demand exceeding the supply of housing. That's basic economics of supply and demand. But that's why these developers who are putting up the apartment complexes are coming in here, because there's a market for them. They don't build these things on speculation. And a lot of folks are coming in from out of the area. And we have to be able to show them that this is a good place to be and that there's value. It's a tough spot. And then we have folks that are pushing hard for controls on rents. They want a city board to be able to have the capacity to hold rents stable or even lower them. Or if a landlord wants to bring in a rent increase, this board can say, no, you can't do that. And that's not a free market. That's socialism. And it's not a good thing. When you have a rent control and the fall off of it, what you end up having is shortages, which in turn creates demand for higher rent, or you'll have landlords that don't take care of their property because they don't have the revenue to support that, and things get run down. And in this case, it may not show up immediately because many of these larger apartment buildings are brand new. But this will show up in time if we have too much interference with regulations and with the market in terms of what the rent should be. But our fearless and peerless leaders are gentrifying our community and creating an environment where only the higher end income folks will be able to afford to live here, and they're not showing much of an interest in our lower income folks that are having a more difficult chance, should I say, to find housing. You know, I have shared this before on this program. You know, when people call for affordable housing, that's really a misnomer. It's subsidized housing, because the market, however you cut the cake, I spent 20 years in contracting and home improvements, the cost of material is what it is. A 2x4 is a 2x4, and its cost is the same. A bag of cement, bricks, sheetrock, fixtures for your bathrooms and kitchens and appliances. There's not a lot of deviation there. And if you're building new roads, you've got the cost of the roads and the utilities to get to the houses, water, sewer, electric, and all of that has an expense. And so unless you've got tax credits or the subsidies, the cost of the house is going to be what it needs to be. And the same folks belly aching about the high cost of rents and housing in general, they make pleas for affordable, I should say not affordable, living wages. That's the term I'm searching for. And they want higher wages, and higher wages are good, except that they'll also raise prices. There's a cost associated with that. So you have to understand that, you know, we've had affordable housing in New London, and in the high rises we tore it down because, again, it wasn't taken care of properly, it wasn't monitored, and it was not, in some instances, a safe place. And we still have a fair amount of subsidized and affordable housing on Coleman Street and Jefferson Avenue. There's senior housing that's subsidized on Riozzi Court, Gordon Court, and Mohegan, and there's the building on Hempstead Street as well. And New London, has done its share. The question is, will our neighbors opt to chip in? And I don't see a large rallying cry to do that. And let's face it, folks, many folks will move to Waterford or East Lyme or Old Lyme or Salem because of what those communities offer now. Again, and the state is doing this as we speak, interfering with the market, saying that future housing is going to have certain amounts of quote-unquote affordable housing, and density will be increased, and things of this nature. And this is why many, many folks have moved to these communities to get away from that. And they have a right to do that. Think about that. That's something that's very serious that I'm surprised there hasn't been more pushback from our friends in the Fairfield County area or the northwest corner up in Litchfield County, that folks are going to want to, coming out of Hartford, dictate land, property size and building size on properties, and the must to have multi-family dwellings or apartment buildings. So these are many, many important issues that again, New London's the worst with the lack of a two-party system. There isn't only one party in New London. It's the Democratic Party. I mean, all of our elected officials, mayor, councilors, and school board members are Democrats. So there is no diversity of thought. There's no discussion. There's no pushback. And that's not a healthy government. And up in Hartford in the State House, it's almost as bad. I mean, the Democrats have the governor's office, the Senate, and the House, and their majorities are getting larger, not smaller. And again, the lack of a two-party system, there is a cost. I know the GOP was very excited after the 2024 election. I was at a function up in Norwich, Grassroots East, then 2 years ago, and I just went to another one recently, and that's a organization whose function it is to support Republican candidate for the 2nd Congressional District. In 2024, there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, but that's been tempered. And that doesn't bode well coming into the midterms here in Connecticut that we'll see much of a change. People have got to show a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. There's got to be a reason to vote for you. I hate seeing the Democrats get away with being lazy because they have no ideas other than that Trump is bad. That's their idea. Trump bad, vote Democrat. And folks, I implore you to seek out better ideas than that, better reasons to vote for candidates for whatever office they're running for. State rep, state senate, Congress, United States Senate, governor. We can do better at all levels. And if somebody comes and wants to talk to you, give them a moment or two. Share your thoughts. Again, we're live tonight on City Focus, and I'm Marty Olsen, your host. And if you'd like to give me a call, I'd love to hear from you at 860-445-7499 and get your thoughts on these important issues facing our community, our region, our state, and our country. Now, I have a note here regarding rentals versus ownership. You know, in New London in particular, before we went on this apartment binge, and the mayor has, he's betting an awful lot on these apartments. When we had the Fort Trumbull redevelopment and all those homes were taken down, the intent at that time, and that goes back now, it's over 25 years, it's hard to believe, that there'd be some new housing in there, but not to the extent that we've got. And it would be condominiums. We were pushing for home ownership, like Shaw's Landing, as well as the building across the street, Harbor Towers. Those are condominiums. Those are owned. People have vested interest in those. And I worried that the folks coming into these apartments, because they are easy to get in, and more importantly, I think it's easy to get out. If you own your property, you'll be much more concerned. You're paying taxes on your property. You'll be more concerned about how your government is working or not. Apartment dwellers typically don't directly feel tax increases. You get that through increases in rent, but you don't get a tax bill directly into your mailbox. So you don't necessarily feel it or see it, but it's there. So when government is sloppy, we pay. Believe me, we pay. And we have to be much more alert. But if folks have the capacity where they can come in and rent, and again, I worry, and all these buildings, I might add, none of them are geared for families or for youth. And the backbone of a community is how we treat our youth in our schools. And I don't care what anybody on the school board tells you, but our schools are failing miserably. We're still competing with New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, Waterbury, and we're dragging our knuckles at the bottom of the state in terms of test scores. It's not an environment that's inviting to young families or young couples considering having families. Because first thing they'll look for is the quality of the educational system. And if New London, and as long as New London is failing, they are going to seek other places, whether they homeschool, private school, parochial school, or pick up and move to another community where the school districts are much stronger. And that just continues to polarize our community between those that are well off and those that aren't. And that's not a healthy environment. We have to think about these things. I think, we put on a happy face, and as the saying goes, you can't put lipstick on a pig. It's not a happy place. Our mayor seems to think our public safety is terrific, and people are clamoring to come into New London to invest, come in here to shop and buy and dine. And I would say that the 50% plus vacancy rate in the storefronts downtown speaks volumes. And folks are not so anxious. But we don't have a police presence downtown either. This is something that's needed desperately. People have got to feel safe. And if they don't, they won't come. It's that simple, whether you live in New London or whether you live out of town. It's that simple. We need a walking beat in the downtown area on State and Bank, and our business owners have got to get to know the police officers and vice versa. There's got to be build some trust. We can't ignore these problems, and they need to be clean. You can't come into New London on a Saturday morning after a Friday night and having garbage all over the place. That's not inviting. Why would somebody want to come into a place that's littered with crap? They don't, and they don't. And these are basics, elementary. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but we got to hold our elected officials accountable. Public Works has been shredded, their personnel, and they've had a tough time with clearing snow. You go next door to Waterford, their roads are in good shape. Our roads are still a mess. Side streets, even with the warm weather we've had today and last night, our roads are still in a precarious state. A quick freeze and we have back into another mess. We're not thinking clearly here. We've got the shiny little things, the little toys that people are looking at, and they're buying into that. You need the kids learning reading, writing, and arithmetic. We need to have our children meeting academic levels that they should be at. Again, if we're scraping at the bottom, it's not an environment that folks are going to clamor to be in. And that leaves us with many of the families that can't afford to leave, because if they could, they would. Think about that. Very, very serious business. Very, very. And folks, you have to recognize, and listen, I grew up in New London, and I've lived most of my life in New London. People have choices. on where they want to live, where they want to send their kids to school, where they want to invest, where they want to start a business and have a business. And if you have an environment that is hostile in these areas, it's not clean and not safe, folks will make a decision to go someplace else. Now, Dan Stewart, his last run for first selectman next door in Waterford, Waterford Republicans, their motto was Waterford works. And it does. Waterford works. The schools work, they get the grass cut, their fields are nice, the roads are shoveled, they're in good shape. And this is the kind of stuff that people want and expect. They don't have to feel that they're going to have to browbeat downtown to make it happen. It just happens because they've got a good administrative structure in place and people know what they got to do and they get it done. Seriously, folks. It's very, very serious. Now, this coming fall, we have, again, as I noted earlier, we've got off-year national and state elections. State reps are up. State senators, Congress, men and women, U.S. Senator, our governor. And this is going on throughout the country. Here's your opportunity to make a difference. And for the folks who rent, and historically they don't vote, here's your opportunity to have your voice heard when it comes to rents. And cleanliness, is your street clean? Police protection. Don't just shrug it off, well, I'm a renter, I don't count. You damn well do count. And you should express yourself. But I wouldn't just take a card that the Democratic Party says and vote for these guys. Check out the other guys. Find the best candidates that you think will do the best job, and don't be a lapdog for the Democratic Party. Now, I know Republicans can get elected in New London, although it's getting harder and harder, and it requires a yeoman effort, an effort that, quite frankly, many aren't willing to put in. But you gotta, as Republicans, you have to understand that going into it. We don't have the registration advantage that our local Democrats do. When I first started getting involved in this game, back in the mid-1980s, the registration advantage the Democrats held was roughly 5-2. Now it's closer to 7-1. And since we made the decision 15 years ago to go to a mayor form of government, it's made it that much more challenging. Because each mayoral election cycle, which is 4 years, they manage to get a few more folks out to vote, getting energized and jacked up and jazzed up for the mayor, and they pull in the rest of the council. And then in the off years, it's very, very challenging. Since we have changed the form of government, Adam Spracacci has served one term as the only Republican on the council. I have served 2 terms as the only Republican member of the council. So that's 6 years. All the other councils have been all Democrat. And Rob Pirro served 1 term on the school board. This is not diversity. It's not diversity of thought. And quite frankly, from what I observe, since we've changed to the mayor form of government, and our current mayor in particular, he's running a little fiefdom here. Council doesn't challenge him. He does whatever he wants. and there's no check and balance. Again, that's not good. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or an independent, or a Green, or any other political party. That's not good for our community. We need to, and I might add too, that less people are attending council meetings, there's less engagement, and I think people are discouraged. My voice doesn't count. Well, if you don't participate, it sure as hell doesn't count. Getting involved takes a bit of an effort. It really does. And there's many ways to get involved and to give back. Politics and running for office is one, but serving on boards and agencies, and we've got a plethora of them, volunteering for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and youth football and cheer and Little League, Scouts. There's ample opportunities to give back to our community. And again, this gets back to the strong family structure that we need in our community to support this stuff. Because if you're worrying about your next meal, you probably don't have time for this stuff. You're worried about getting enough money scraped together so you can put food on the table and pay your rent. And then you got the folks that are on the elderly side, they've already done their time, and they're getting a little bit long in the tooth. And they're not doing this now. This is for the younger, middle, the 30, 40-somethings. That's what we need them. And we need them to contribute. 50-somethings. Seriously, folks, I'll make a last plea here for a phone call. I know there's folks out there listening, and that's 860, it's up on the screen, 445-7499. Give me a buzz. What are your thoughts? You think I'm on the right track, or do you think I'm off my rocker? Maybe you've got some thoughts on these topics that might be a little bit different than mine, and that's A-OK. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I don't like to just be critical. It's easy to throw rocks. It's a lot harder to solve problems. Getting a consensus can be challenging. The thing is, going back to the community center, when I first got back on council in 2009 after being off for a number of years and out of town for a few as well, then Councilor Passero, he had a goal and when he first got on the council, was to get a community center built. And it took the better part of 14, 15 years to accomplish that goal. So that didn't move exactly lickety-split. It's a challenge. I remember having a conversation with Matt Rollins, a former New London High School basketball star. He was interested, got 10, 15 years ago, he and his wife wanted to talk to me about what do you need to do to get something going with a community center. We had a serious conversation. But I let him know that it's going to be daunting. This is not an easy task to get the community to rally around something and to get it funded. Very serious challenges. But if we pull together, we have an opportunity to accomplish great things. But we can't stand idly by. Now, I want to mention, folks, that this program, we're live tonight, and we're on Breezeline Cable, channel 24, and we're also on Comcast in Frontier. I don't have their channels readily available, but they're on live, and I know on Breezeline that this program will be rerun over the next week on numerous occasions at different times on different days. So you'll have an opportunity to watch the program. And we also go on YouTube, and that will go up on the air either sometime this evening or tomorrow morning. And to access that, you need to go online and go to YouTube and search Marty Olsen, O-L-S-E-N, City Focus, SEC-TV, and you should be able to pull up a laundry list of programs for your viewing pleasure. And often, matter of fact, most often, I have a guest with an interesting discussion on a myriad of topics. And I think the most positive change that's going on, and perhaps Drew can put this up on the screen, is that we are now streaming live. And you need to go to the there we go. Go to sec-tv.org and choose from the live stream menu, which is in the upper right. And you should be able to find the program and get this live. And that's well beyond the scope of local Southeastern Connecticut. That gives us a global presence. So folks in Japan and Cambodia and South America, all over the United States, Europe, they can watch us too. So tune in, watch City Focus. And I encourage you to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 to the Lee Elsie program, The Voice of Freedom on 94.9 FM on your dial. And I'll be on for 30 minutes with Lee, and we'll be discussing many of these topics, and I look forward to hearing from you. And on that note, we're going to say good night. And next week I will not be here. I've got a prior commitment, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm not sure what we'll be running as a replay next week, but please tune in. Good night.